Welcome, everyone. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert, author, speaker, and podcast host. You're listening to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. More women than ever are faced with challenging decisions on a regular basis. I am so privileged to sit down with them to discuss exactly what they've gone through and how they've come out the other side, realizing their wildest dreams. I'm sure you'll be able to relate. And don't forget to stay to the end to take advantage of my latest free gift. Let's get started. Welcome to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert. And as always, we're here talking about decisions that have been made in our lives that were courageous or impactful or changed the course of our life, or even one that we wish we could go back on. Today, I have Susan Tucker as my guest. Susan is a psychic medium intuitive coach, married and recently retired. She is the mother of 4 adults along with grandchildren in tow. Her interests are knitting, cooking, outdoors, reading, and talking with spirit. Susan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Dana, for having me come on your podcast. It's an honor.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. So before we get started, I want to remind all of our listeners that I ask my guests at the end of the podcast what their favorite app is on their phone outside of social media. So you'll want to stay to the end to hear what Susan has to say, because we get some really great suggestions. And you'll also want to stay to the end to get access to my latest freebie. So, Susan, we're going to take this step by step. I want you to set the stage for us as it relates to the decision you've so graciously offered to share with us today. And just a reminder to our listeners, I don't know what this decision is. We haven't talked about it ahead of time. So you're hearing this at the same time I am. So, Susan, tell us about the background. Set the stage, maybe how old you were, where you were living, bring us into where you were.
Okay, I'm going to start the story is that I was in junior high. I was about 12 years old, and I was living in Connecticut, and I lived in a very rural community, and I lived on a small farm, so I had a very sheltered kind of upbringing, and just kind of giving you the framework there. My mom was a mail carrier, a rural mail carrier for the town. And occasionally, she would take me on one of her short little routes just for some company with my mom. And when I was in junior high, suddenly I would look at a house that I've seen hundreds of times before, and I'd be drawn to that house. And I would say to my mom, "Who lives there?" And then she would tell me the person's name. And I was done struck with how much I was drawn and attracted to the name of the person that lived there. And I would spend, from that moment on, I would spend time saying it and letting it roll off my tongue over and over and over again for days. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I just was enamored with this name. And by the end of the week, I had found out that that person had died. And it was like, oh, wow, what, small town, everybody knows when the births and the deaths happen in that town.
Right.
And I didn't think too much of it at the time. It was just a coincidence. And as time went on.
Let me clarify. So you drove by the house with your mom, say at the beginning of the week, she told you the name of the person who lived there. By the end of the week, that person had died within the course of that week?
Yes, that's true, Dana.
Okay.
And I would be in the car once again with my mom, going to the grocery store and passing another house. And I would look at that house and just be struck and say, "Mom, who lives there?" And she would tell me once again the name of the person. And I started doing the same thing. And I realized after doing it about 6 times, and the end result was always the same, that the person died at the end of a week.
I
I
just got the
was
chills.
I was overwhelmed with, I thought I had my something to do with that. And I wanted nothing to ever do that again. I wouldn't ask my mom who lived there. I stopped asking inquisitive questions based on the fact I was really afraid and I didn't understand this. And it was beyond a coincidence and it wasn't fun.
So are you saying after those six occurrences, that you would still drive by different homes and still feel a pull, but you just chose to completely ignore all that?
Yes, I shut it down is another term.
Okay.
I stopped that fascination with being pulled to someone's home, their residence, and finding out their name. Um, so I went on the rest of my, young life, uh, knowing that this experience had happened to me and not really wanting to talk about it or experience it again.
Okay. So
And then
you didn't really share that with anyone? Like when you knew like those six times, did you share that with anyone? Did your mom know? Did you?
yes, my mom knew about it and my some of my girlfriends knew about it, but it wasn't something I was really wanting to share. It was creepy, just downright creepy. Um, as time goes on, I'm a young mother. I have my marriage has just ended, and I started dating a couple years later, and I met this man who later became my husband. And upon instantly meeting him and, saying hello to him, I was filled with this feeling that this man before me was going to have a short life. And I said to myself, oh no, it's starting again. But now I'm doing it face to face. And I pushed it out. I pushed it out thinking I have an over imaginative mind
Mm-hmm.
and let it go. And it was 7 years later, he did die of a coronary widowmaker, and that's when it all flooded back to me.
So I'm going to ask a few questions. How old was he at the time?
He died at 50,
Okay. And
and
how old were you?
I was 45.
So you had let all those years go by
I did.
without re-tapping into that.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just let it go dormant, and I didn't know what it was, and so therefore, out of sight, out of mind. Upon his passing, that's when the gates opened up and I was flooded with all this mystery and feelings of terrible guilt and feelings of confusion. Um, Never mind the sadness. It was now very conflicting for me because of my meeting him and remembering that singular thought I had. And
Right.
then it ends up coming to pass for this man at 50. Well, so that took me, when that happened, I was, yeah, I was 40, 45 when this happened. I decided from that point on that I needed to know what was happening. And I made a conscious decision that I wanted to understand what had happened to me. And I started asking a lot of questions to some very, confidential friends that I had that were in the metaphysical field.
Okay.
And I only wanted vetted teachers. I only wanted vetted um, people in my life because of it's it's a very mysterious world out there. And I really wanted to have a lot of confidence in what I was learning. And so for the next 3 and 4 years, I read books, I went to classes, I sat in being mentored, I took courses, and I studied and I studied and I studied. And I came to find out through this years of learning, I felt like I was going to college doing this. I was so driven. Um, that I really wanted to know. I used to say it this way, a table. A table has a flat surface, but it has four legs that holds the table up. And I
Right.
wanted to know the legs of the table. So when I approached psychic development and mediumship, I really wanted to know who the leaders were, the historical information, the influences, because it's a very real history. People really have built upon this and did it for reasons and found out information, um, and actually had a method to it. So at that point, I decided I really wanted to become a psychic. I really wanted to become a medium. And I just put my nose to the grind or nose to the wheel, and I obtained that. And how do I say this nicely or gently? Um, Intuition, we all have it. And you can pay attention to it or you can ignore it. And you can build on your intuition if you want to pay attention to it, because then it gets more expanded and it goes into a psychic realm where you now have a sensitivity of hearing, seeing, knowing, feeling the invisible. And I went and got tested, and I was really super amazed at the naturalness of it all for myself. And what I realized way back in junior high, I have the gift of premonition. And the gift of premonition is, in my thinking, it's not fun. There's no fun, there's no benefit, there's no advantage in knowing, when someone's life is going to be called.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have never pressed on with that. I kind of let that go to sleep, but I really developed the other parts of myself. And it's been the most fascinating journey of my entire life. And so I have a new career, and I've been doing it for the last 10 years, of being a psychic medium, intuitive coach for others, and uh, making it a paying career.
I have so many questions and so many comments. So I'm going to try and remember what I wanted to say in relation to everything that you've shared with us. Um, First of all, do you feel that, making the decision to follow this path, is there a stigma that surrounds it, or what would prevent you from going all in?
What prevented me from going all in is the stigma of it being a not a very comfortable um, career choice, because the stigma is that people think you're crazy, you're off balance. I- it's hard to really validate the information in the beginning, and it does not make you look very normal.
Normal's overrated.
Normal is overrated.
So
But
go ahead.
no, go ahead, Dana.
Uh, so you talked a lot about intuition and, paying attention and that kind of thing. And maybe that's why you and I seem to live on kind of the same parallel, because in the decision making that I do, and I actually just did a live about it the other day, I was talking about intuition and how, as you work through my 5-step process, you always have your intuition about what path you should take, what decision you should make. And typically, when you work through my 5-step process, it corroborates your intuition. So the more you work through the process, the more your intuition, is at the forefront. And that way you can actually stop doing the process step by step by step and just listen to your intuition. Now that's taken me 30 years to get there, just like it took you, a couple of years of really, tapping into it and that kind of thing. But there's so much that we can do with our intuition if we just pay attention. So I love that, that correlation for sure.
Yes, to add to that, your intuition expands the more you trust yourself. And that is I would say that one of the keys, learning to trust yourself, using your intuition as a guidance compass, so to speak, for your highest and your best, um, becomes easier, and it becomes more recognizable that you're taking those right steps because it resonates with you, and it's very empowering. You get evidence of it very quickly that you're moving in that right direction.
I so understand and agree with that. The story I was telling was just really quickly. I was choosing who was going to be in my wedding party, and I needed one more person. And I was like trying to figure out who that would be. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, it needs to be our goddaughter. I chose her as a junior bridesmaid, and it just felt so good. I had been a junior bridesmaid when I was 9 or 10, and I loved the honor of that. The cousin that I had been a junior bridesmaid for, I'd lost touch. I hadn't talked to her in about 10 years. But as I said to my fiance at the time, I know who I'm going to have as my fourth attendant. And, he agreed that was a good idea. And the phone rang. And it was this cousin that I hadn't talked to in 10 years that I had been a junior bridesmaid for. So sometimes, I need, if I'm not too sure, I need the universe or, something to tell me, yep, you made the right decision. And I've found that as I've grown in trusting my intuition, I get those affirmations almost immediately, just like I did in that circumstance. So is there
Yes.
anything, that you do that like that you get confirmation or a surety that you're headed in the right direction?
Yeah, a good word to use is also validation. You get validation when you're in the right stream of energy and the right intuitive decision process, because it reflects back on you and you become validated as your evidence. And therefore, it really doubles down on your confidence and allows you to step into the next level, the next decision. Um, and it just has an unfoldment that happens. And even when you take a misstep, you recognize it very quickly because it's not resonating within yourself.
Hmm.
And so it's a beautiful skill to really want to grow and enhance in each and every one of us, because we can do it. Um, Intuition's natural. It's the fight or flight, or catching something as it falls. But it's also a skill that you can develop, and learning that it is a skill. There's methods to really increase that and allow you to in- increasingly trust yourself more.
Wonderful. And I know you and I have had conversations around, what that looks like, and I'm excited for what's to come for you. So, as we go back to you having made that decision that you're going to pursue um, mediumship and, make sure that you were honing your psychic abilities to the best of your ability, what,
Correct.
what were some of the challenges or pitfalls you came up against?
Oh, great question. I would say doubting myself, number one.
Oh,
A lot of fear, because you have to step out and speak the information that you're receiving to the person in front of you. And it's a risk to be wrong, a huge risk to be wrong. It's embarrassing. My ego mind would be like, oh, don't say that, you could be wrong. And, you know, then you're going to look at pawn as a fake or being wrong. And what I learned from that is the best thing that you can do is practice, and then practice, and then practice some more. But you have to accept the risk of being wrong in order to find out if you are correct. And I don't mean me personally. This is spirit, through this energetic force, um, that the information that I'm perceiving and picking up on, I have to have the courage to step into it and be seen with it and allow myself to make mistakes, because the more you practice, the more you hone this experience to learn and understand where the misstep was and how that happened. You undo that knot, and then you keep proceeding, um, and have determination and have. I know for myself, I was a very determined and very, I won't say obsessed, that's going too far, but I really was so enamored and interested and driven as a student that for me, I knew I was going to end up doing this. I just had too much of that drive. It wasn't a hobby for me. It really was very meaningful.
Right.
Um,
And what does your family think about it?
oh my God, it has taken me years to really embrace that, because, I didn't want to hurt my family's feelings or be criticized. And I just went very slowly and timidly step forth. And as they've seen me evolve and develop and seen my work, they're very proud of me now. And I've really made non-believers believers. And um, there's still, I'm very respectful of my family and anyone else who doesn't believe in this. Um, and I will, be very respectful towards that. But it's very rewarding to have that acceptance within your own intimate family group.
I'll bet. I'll bet. I'm sitting here trying to think how long we've known each other. Are we coming up on 3 years? Does that sound about right? Four
Yes,
years?
that's
Three,
true.
3 years?
4 years. Yes.
Um, and I remember, anyway, just because of where we happened to be geographically, we were in the same town of all places. And I remember that first conversation with you, and I hope I don't get choked up talking about it. But I remember you saying at one point, "Oh, you had a thought," and I saw you have that thought, and I said, "What?" And you said to me, "I don't I don't feel comfortable sharing what that was because we had just met. You didn't know anything about me." I remember when I have readings, I'm very like stoic, right? I don't give facial expressions. I don't agree or disagree until it's like it's bursting out of me because you've been so spot on. But I remember you saying, I said to you, "You've said it now, like, I know now you need to say something. So just say it to me. I've got broad shoulders. I'm all good." And what you said was my life. Like, you picked out one part of my life and described it to a T that wouldn't have been known any other way. There would have been no way for you to know that about me. And it was very specific. Like, it wasn't just oh, let's talk about this topic and hope it lands. So for me, that was like, oh my goodness, she's the real deal. And you've gone on to, even the last time we had a conversation, you were talking a little bit about premonitions. Do you remember? And there was a premonition about someone leaving my life. And what did I do? I texted you, a week or two later, and that had transpired. So the gift that you have for me is unparalleled. I've never met anyone like you. And you I wasn't a skeptic previously. I certainly believe that energy is out there. I just haven't learned myself how to harness it. So sometimes when I don't know how to do something myself, I don't necessarily believe that anybody else knows how to do it. But obviously, with all your training and everything, and the validation that we get when you provide me with readings, like, I'll be a lifelong client just because I love every minute of every interaction that we have. So the decision that you made, when you did after the untimely death of that would have been your second husband, right? And I didn't acknowledge that. And I'm sorry that happened in your life. Obviously, it propelled you to new challenges and, a new, well, not new, to re-embrace something that you knew was there. But I think maybe it gave you the courage to accept that was your path. Mm-hmm.
And Dana, thank you very much for your kind words. You're very kind, so thank you. Yeah, I looked at the tragedy as being the springboard to what I do today.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it wasn't for that traumatic experience, I would not have been reflective to what's going on and wanting to find out what went on. And so there's a part of me that's very grateful in a kind of weird way. And it's a very it's a very rewarding life that I have now, because I want to always say it's not me. I am just tapping into the unseen, and you are the evidence and you are the validation for me. And I thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If any of our listeners might be interested in getting in touch with you, could they do that through me if they wanted to?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, very much
Okay.
so.
Put
Please
that
do.
out there. If anybody's interested in speaking with Susan, you can certainly come through me and I'll get you in touch, because she's absolutely phenomenal. And she does not only in person, but Zoom calls and that kind of thing too. All right. Okay. At the beginning, I said I was going to ask you the one final question. So here we are, looking at your phone and not any of your social media apps and not my Decision Smith app, because we know that's a favorite of everyone's. Outside of those, which is your favorite app?
Well, my favorite, and I use it daily, it is the Gilded Reverie Lenormand. And what that is tarot cards. And it is by Ciro Manchetti. It's from the 1700s. And on my phone, if I would like to know the card for the day or have a reading, I just pull it up and I ask my questions and I get a card spread. And on top of yours, this is two important things, because it's very helpful in guidance of everyday and long-term questions that you have.
Wow. I'll definitely be downloading that one. Thank you. Susan, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with me today and your stories. To all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And if you're ready to realize your wildest dreams, come and join us in the Wildly Courageous Women Facebook group, where we're changing people's lives one brave decision at a time. I'm Dana Peever. Until next time, make great decisions and do life fun. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Wildly Courageous Women. Keep listening to hear more stories of these incredible women realizing their wildest dreams. If you have a story to tell about a decision that you've made that has impacted your life, I'd love to feature you as a guest. Please get in touch, and don't forget to grab my latest gift by clicking below. I'm Dana Peever. As always, make great decisions and do life fun.